a lot of the time as actors, we get caught in this, thinking that a character has to be real, right? And I always Ghostbusters real, right? Real is not your job. Why do you think real is not your job? I don't care if you're trying to create something that's as real as possible. If you're sitting there thinking about what's real for this character, I'm going to say you're not in the craft. The craft is what? Artistic. Okay? And a lot of the time we forget that in the creation of art is how character development has to start. That you are dealing in make-believe. Okay? This is a very important context for Batson technique. That it is about art. That you're not sitting there trying to do a documentary about the character that you're playing. We do not care that how real the character is. We want to feel the character's humanity. This is the focus of the artistic expression. That all great artistic expression comes from a place of humanity. And without this connection, you are not allowing the audience to invest or the audience to commit to really what the story is. Without humanity, we get lost not being able to understand the story. If there's not a human sense of what connects these relationships, what allows this conflict to live, we lose this. And the minute we lose story, we are out as an audience. We start to think, we start to itch, we start to scratch, we start to worry about our schedules. And for Susan, the creation of her technique is based on this fundamental precept that humanity allows story to live. And without understanding your own humanity, you will never be able, without not understanding, accepting your own humanity, you will never be able to connect to a character's. You always want to remind yourself, and when she studied with Strasberg and Harold Clurman and Herbert Berghoff and Uta Hagen, what they kept emphasizing to her was this sense of, hey, look, you have to fill up the character with you. You get to pour into the mold of the character that you see in a script all the things that you are. And it's not to say that it's a psychological understanding. It's the way in which the character's humanity exists in the moment-to-moment life of the story. And when she got that understanding, she really started to go, okay, well, how can I make this a universal connection for every character I play? And that was the precept that she built this technique on. A lot of people call this inside-out work, right? Some people call this method. And Susan and I call this a process. It's just another technique, another way to get into this beast. Your first fundamental responsibility as an actor is to create character from what's on the page. If this fundamental responsibility is unclear of how to create and build that, then it doesn't matter what you do, right? A lot of people can build this through outside-in work, which is costume, understanding of circumstance, but at some point, who they are gets to be poured into that mold. So we get a character from a script, and in that we start to see the circumstance of the person's life. We start to see what their conflict is, what they want, what they hope for, and then to make sure that lives moment to moment, they get to be poured in. And a lot of the time, you forget this is not psychological, it's personal. And all great art comes from that place, that there's something personal being transmitted into the artist's expression. And it's really an interesting element that she took she did study psychology and she did study a lot of different art forms. And what she found was to make art personal is critical to have the audience invest, as I said before. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for audience investment, not just audience entertainment. There's a big difference. I tell people a lot of the time, you know, you can go to a movie and be like, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that because you were entertained. But when you leave a movie talking about the characters as if they are human beings, then you were invested, right? If you left Godfather, I mean, still, all the men in the room, I don't know if you still quote Godfather. I still quote Godfather about 5 or 6 times a day. I'll find myself because they are people to me. Do you get me? I still quote Do the Right Thing. They are people to me. So I remember when I was 16 leaving that movie going, these people lived with me. There was something accurately and specifically human about not just their experience, but about who they were, that each actor I felt created. And the more that you start to define the difference between entertained and investment, the more you start to see what Susan's ultimate goal is, which is excellence. She is hoping that in this technique, you automatically prioritize a sense of excellence in performance, in execution, in preparation, in understanding of character. And it's because of this that this technique is very difficult. And it's scientific to a certain degree in that way. You know, a lot of people ask me, well, how do you define excellence? I define excellence as, you know, something that is, you do not know, right? Something that you experience because you are striving for something. Something that allows your ambition and commitment to live in a space where it has not ever lived before. So my definition of excellence is through the roof, beyond the stars, to this planet you've never seen, to that space you've never seen. And artistic excellence, to me, is rare. It's rare. It takes a level of commitment, it takes a level of sacrifice, and it takes a huge sense of follow-through. And this is what this process is built on. Commitment, sacrifice, and follow-through to get to the humanity of the character. And a lot of the time, if you come from that precept, and there are tons and tons of different acting techniques that will hopefully lead you to the same place. And I think if you come from that precept, you automatically have audience investment instead of audience entertainment. And there's a big, big difference in that, you know? Always people come to me and go, did you see this movie? Did you really like it? I'm like, no, I didn't like that movie. I was entertained by it, do you know? But I wasn't invested in it, you know? And it's rare that you see films that you're really, really invested in, or see theater that you're really, really invested in, or see television that you're really, really invested in. There was a big moment for me when I first saw The Sopranos that I really got the understanding of a visceral audience connection. I used to freak out watching that show. It did something to my body. The first time, remember, I'll never forget watching that pilot alone. It was like watching a horror movie. There was something physical about the connection that Gandolfini, Edie Falco, Michael Imperioli, and all these actors brought to the story and the conflict. It was the same way I felt when I first saw 6 Feet Under. It was the same way I felt when I first heard Miles Davis, or first heard Coltrane, or Parker, or Dizzy Gillespie, or when I first saw a Chagall painting. There is a visceral experience with art that comes from something personal the artist is willing to give. And that automatically means that you have to get beyond your ego as an artist. And part of her technique, and especially in the classes, is to break this bitch down. Your ego protects you. Your ego keeps you in a safe place. That's what its job is. But the minute you let your ego determine or control the moment-to-moment life of the character, you are not in the fullness of the humanity of the life you're presenting. And in that way, something will not be invested by an audience. Something will not be invested by you as the artist. And the great artists, they might be horrible people, right? If you ever known a really wonderful, powerful artist, they might be a real son of a bitch. But with their work, they are willing to give everything. And that really, to me, is what separates Susan's technique from a lot of others, is the way this technique operates, you get to, not have to, but get to give everything. And in that way, there's an opportunity of discovery, okay? And a lot of the time as actors, we forget how important it is to discover moment-to-moment life. We forget how important it is to discover what words hit us as we said X, Y, and Z thing. We forget that the discovery in the moment is as significant as the impact the moment has. Because you hopefully want to move through a story, and each element adds another layer, another understanding of the conflict, another understanding of the relationship, another understanding of the intent, another understanding of how that intent physically, emotionally, and psychologically manifests in the character. And this technique prioritizes that if you're in the humanity, you are automatically get to a discovery. But again, to get there is a search for excellence. And a lot of the time in this, and with this studio and with the classes that we have, we are automatically prioritizing this excellence to get you into the character's humanity so you can discover something about your actor. And you can discover how your actor can move through moment-to-moment life.